Hi, I'm Jim Hemphill, features writer for IndieWire, and this is our Crafts Roundtable on composing for television, where music becomes the emotional thread connecting story, character, and tone. From subtle cues to unforgettable themes, our guests help define how these shows feel. Our guests today are Kris Bowers and Michael Dean Parsons, composers of Spider-Noir. From the Boroughs, John Paesano. From the Madison, Breton Vivian. From Murderbot, Amanda Jones. From Alien Earth, Jeff Russo, and the composer of Monster, the Ed Gein Story, Quayle. I guess I want to start by talking a little bit about some of the long-term collaborations that a few of you have had with the showrunners on your shows. Like, for example, Mac, I think you've been working with Ryan Murphy for, 11 years, something like that. When you come on something like Ed Gein, how much advance notice do you have? What are the initial conversations with him like?
The circumstances really mirrored the first show that I did for him, which was American Horror Story, season 4. And I came on late in the process. They'd tried some ideas that didn't work out, and now they're running out of time, and I get a call, and I go into a meeting with Ryan, and he's like, I need a horror score, I need themes, and we have, almost no time. So he's like, I need you to do what you did on American Horror Story for us, because it was the same thing. I came in last minute, and it was exciting and terrifying.
Well, actually, I guess that raises a question I'd be interested in hearing from all of you, which is how early are you able to come on your shows? Because I know in some cases, like I think, Jeff, you've been on Alien Earth for years in one sense or another, but then I'm assuming there are others that are more like what Mac's describing, where you're coming on very late in the process. So how early did each of you come on your shows, and what state was the show in?
Typically with Noah, because I've been working with Noah for almost 17 years, he will send me scripts right at the very, very beginning, and I'll start writing thematic material like right off the bat. And then there was an amount of time that we stopped because we had to make Fargo season 5. So we went and made Fargo season 5, and then came back to Alien Earth, and then all the thematic material started to coalesce.
Having that much time away, how did that impact your approach when you came back to it? Did it feel fresh? Did it feel like you had to kind of get acclimated again?
Well, it's interesting, things changed, right? The first and second scripts were one thing, and I started writing, and then when he came back to it, a lot of changes had been made to the first 2 scripts, so I had time away, and I got to rethink thematic material that I had already written, so I got to rethink that. It was actually really helpful in order to really grow the idea across the whole season.
Do you prefer script or to the actual picture?
I wouldn't say I prefer one or the other. I think that it's really great to start with one and then end up with the other, because you have a totally different way of looking at it, right? So when you're looking at just the script, I'm only thinking of what is in my head and how that affects what I'm writing. And then when you start to see picture, things start to change and things start to get rewritten or re-edited and moved around. So I like both.
I feel like you can come up with ideas that you probably wouldn't have had you just started with the picture, because as you're away from it, you're just sort of thinking very abstractly about the work.
I think that's a really important thing, and I wish more filmmakers would do that for us.
Yeah, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. For Murderbot, I actually read the book first and then saw the creators. So I just started writing music and I sent it to them, and I was just like, hey, I'd love to do this. And they were like, let's go. And so I started writing, I had probably 6 to 8 months of just creating ideas and just based on what I'd read, and then they sent me the script, and it was a long incubation period of just playing with, synthy electronic ideas or kind of 70s retro ideas, and it was just really playful and a lot of fun. And Skarsgård's performance was extraordinary, and you want to leave space for that powerful performance. So playing with a lot of just singular ideas, just pitches, weird frequencies, and silence, and just giving him that space to be awkward and strange.
Did they start cutting to your music since you had so much you were able to share early? That's
they
cool.
did.
Yeah.
And same with the main title. The main title was animated to what I'd written, which is pretty cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, wow.
That definitely makes our job easier.
Yes.
The editors
Yeah,
probably
they
don't
have-
like it as much.
Oh, you think so?
You start to give them music, and then now they're like, well, I was gonna put Hans in, and I can't do that now. So
That is That's so funny.
And then, Breton, you've worked with Taylor Sheridan, obviously, before, too. So with the Madison, again, like, how much advance notice did you have?
I came on really late. So by the time I was on, I watched the whole thing and could tell the whole arc of the story, which was good because, like, there was these big scenes that were really important to the story that I was like, okay, I got to start subconsciously thinking about what I'm going to do there. And it also helped me to think about, you know, I need a bunch of themes that are going to be really important to weave throughout the story. And so I came on because he loves 1883. It's his favorite of the scores that we've done. And he just wanted something in the similar vein. And so in a way, it is different because the story's very different. It's not people, you know, at war with each other. It's about grief, but there's that kind of through line between the two. And I guess it's trying to have that sound that is sort of the universe, but not the same, basically.
Everything okay?
No, Russell, I wouldn't say so.
What happened?
Well, a lot of emotions, Russell. They have no idea where to put them. I'd give them some space so they don't try to put them on you.
On Madison, there's this sort of contrast between Montana and New York, and I'm curious how the setting, being another character in all these shows, affects the way you score it.
Yeah, I mean, with that, it was less about like jazz, but more about the frenetic energy of New York. And so it was a lot of like just very staccato, energetic music versus when we're in Montana, it's very long and lush, and also some of the scenery influenced a lot of the textures that I was doing. I was trying to think of like, you know, wind blowing through trees or, you know, there's all these shots, beautiful external shots of rivers that like snake through the landscape. So I was trying to have glissando strings that kind of flow with it. And it kind of helped tell the story of, she's also going through this kind of like dreamlike state of grief and trying to, you know, doing a roller coaster of emotion. So it kind of helped sell that idea of grief can be kind of you're in like a dreamlike state, really, yeah.
John, with the Boroughs, how did you come on board?
I came on relatively early. You know, we were kind of going for this, I hate to call it throwback because I remember it like it was yesterday. It doesn't feel like throwback to me. But I grew up on, you know, Horner and Newton Howard and, you know, kind of the great maestros of the 80s and 90s. And we really had this idea that we wanted the show to be kind of be in that world. And there was a feel to it. And I thought, okay, like, it's one thing to come up with the music in that style, but a big part of that style is how the music was written to picture as well. And they didn't have all the technology and all the things that composers have at their fingertips today, where they had to kind of, you know, read a script, look at footage, make, you know, a couple markers maybe on their manuscript where they wanted to hit certain things. It was a very much loose process than it is today with all the technology that we have. And so I wanted to kind of adopt that process in writing the score as well. So, you know, we did a lot of sketches, a lot of suites, a lot of kind of, you know, big, broad ideas, and we weren't so tied to picture. So the process started relatively early. The goal for me with all these suites is I want the directors and producers and people involved to be able to shut their eyes, listen to the music, and kind of see their you know, whether it's film or show or however it is. And that's why those scores, I think, in the 80s and 90s are so colorful and they're so vibrant. It's because a lot of times they were written from the imagination. They weren't concerned about dialogue and visual effects and all the things you have to be conscious of once you take that music and put it against the show. It's a kind of a minefield to write just straight against picture because you have to be conscious of all these different things that are going on with the screen. So coming up with your ideas and your big kind of, you know, big thematic ideas is tricky against picture sometimes. And so kind of getting in there early, I think, helps that process a little bit.
We didn't have much time at all. Yeah, we came in pretty late, and the good thing about that is we actually were able to watch the entire series, and like they were picture locked when we came in, so we were able to watch the whole thing and really get a feel for it. And you know, when I first talked to Oren and the filmmakers, they had temp in there that was modern but really loop-based. And the thing that was really challenging about it is that the series is really calling for music that is engaged with the picture and has not only thematic material, but also is scored to picture and advancing with the picture and with the arc of the story. And to try to do that and have some sort of modern sound to it it felt like a challenge that was pretty impossible with the amount of time. And so I immediately asked to bring in Michael because I've been looking for something for us to collaborate on. We've been collaborators for a while now and friends for a while, and I just have such respect for how Michael approaches things and this idea of needing to be able to have music that respects both the noir, Maltese Falcon, you know, Bernard Herrmann, Franz Waxman style of writing, along with modern production and like weird unorthodox things. It felt like a great place for us to kind of jump into that.
Yeah, I mean, we knew from the very beginning that it was going to be a richly thematic score, and it was almost scholastic in the sense that we were saying we're going to have themes for every character, we're going to have motifs for every character, we're going to have scenes where one character's motif is playing while another is being hinted at via some kind of weird sound. So we knew, seeing the whole series, that we would be able to craft these arcs that even if you were only hearing maybe like 3 or 4 seconds of that theme in the first episode, by episode 8, when that character has a full transformation, it really unfolds. And then another big part of our discussion outside of the thematic writing initially was setting, because this takes place in New York, and looking at that rich noir history, we thought, man, we're gonna have to have a lot of kind of early jazz influence. And it was very interesting because the showrunner said, you know, for me, New York City is punk 90s guitar. And so that started to like, wait, this is not just a noir homage kind of score. This is like, we're gonna take recordings and stretch them out. We're gonna record street trash cans and like bucket drummers and like turn that into percussion and make it into this thing that's not just an homage, but is also all these different influences coming together.
These scores are big, they're cinematic, they're orchestral, they have collages of everything in them. Especially something like a Spider-Man, you're looking at like a film score per episode. You know what I mean? And the sheer volume of music that you have to get through. I mean, we really are, I mean, I don't think, I have a team, I think a lot of people have other people involved in the process. I always say the behind the scenes in film music it's like visual effects. I mean, it's wild, the amount of people that lend themselves to these scores and that are involved with them. And you don't really get to see it with visual effects. It's so visual, it's on the screen. But music, great scores are ones you kind of feel and don't necessarily hear all the time. And so just, it always amazes me just to get to the end of the finish line on these projects, because just the sheer volume of music that has to be written in a certain amount of time is just, and we've had a lot of time. I mean, something like a Spider-Man, you guys have a lot of time. I mean, it's wild to get through that amount of music, and just, you know, just it's always impressive.
Also just needing to stress test the themes from the very beginning. I mean, because we had 8 episodes from the beginning, and you might write a theme that you think is great in episode 1, or you go, oh, surely this will pay off. And then when you get there, like, oh man, I may have to tweak this a bit, and then retroactively change it.
I remember visual effects, and it's probably the same too with, I'm sure Jeff dealt with this too on Alien, but like I remember doing Apes. You'd write whole pieces of music, and then you would say, oh, this is great, and all of a sudden, the humans that were in mocap suits turned into apes. The cue's out the door. I mean, it didn't make sense anymore, you know? And so like now we're dealing with that as well, you know? You're dealing with this whole other aspect where a lot of times you're writing, I'm sure you dealt with that on Alien, and the visual effects come in, and it's like, oh wait, I gotta rethink this. This is a different thing now.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I don't even see. You don't even see anything. It's just a big slug. Like, oh, this is 62 seconds of the ship flying. Okay. You know. So yeah, that's a really difficult thing to deal with. But the thing that I'm so interested in is between all of us, half of us sort of had a lot of lead-up time, right? And we started at the script stage and thematic material and all that. And then the other half was brought on right at the last minute. Which do we like more?
It really depends. I think there's pros and cons to both for me.
Right.
I feel like with this, the great thing is that you don't really have time to think. And it's just like responding and just trying things. And I feel like sometimes, especially for me with a jazz background,
it's very improvisational.
It comes out, and like I feel like I can trust my instincts a little bit better. Yeah. Like you guys have said about having a lot of time. There's also the pleasure of being able to write something, then come back to it a month later and be like, actually, I want to approach it this way, or being able to see how something evolves over time. So Yeah, I feel like pretty mixed.
Yeah,
actually.
I feel like the same way. I mean, it's funny. It's like a one size doesn't fit all, right? Like it all depends on who's in charge and who's making these decisions and kind of what their taste is. And that's why the working relationships, like you guys, work with people over and over again, that conversation becomes much
More
maneuverable,
natural.
so to
Exactly.
speak. But if it's like a first time person, it can be a little bit tricky navigating that.
When you're working with a new director, how do you find that common language?
I always try to tell people I'm working with, don't treat me like an actor, because technical music information is not going to help me with anything. I need to know more emotional and what they're striving for in a scene or a show, or like what feel do they want.
I've had experiences where directors and producers, they appear pretty uncomfortable in this role of like trying to tell me what it is they want. And some people will tell, like, I don't know anything about music, and they'll say that like repeatedly. And over the years, I've come to think that we're kind of intimidating. It's like we're like these wizards. We have this magical music that we create that people don't understand. And the other parts of the filmmaking process, they know more about it. It's like the acting, there's the actors and the camera and the editing and the sound, but the music is this other thing. And so, there's many directors that are very comfortable, but I've definitely worked with some that are just like, okay, what is this sorcery? I don't know how to interact with this person. So it's been
We should start charging
kind
people
of
money.
amusing.
Right?
We're certainly like therapists in that way, like trying to get an understanding as to what makes people feel one thing or another. And I've had that conversation with filmmakers before as well, like asking the question, what is it that makes you feel happy, or what is it that makes you feel sad in terms of music? And I'm talking about like anything. Do you like to listen to Taylor Swift?
Sure, yeah.
And that can sometimes help, but we are magicians.
It's definitely easier to work with a director that knows what they want, but someone that doesn't know what they want, I just kind of dig in, just like try to figure out where they are in life. Like, what do certain terms, like what does jazz mean to them? What does hip hop mean to them? What are their favorite classical artists or whatever? What are they listening to now? Like what's on their playlist? It may not be what the sound of the show is. It just allows me to understand like who they are and how they think, and having like a better grasp on that will then make the creative process easier.
It really is a collaboration, and what you're saying is so important. Like, you have to be able to vibe with who you're working with, to have those free conversations. The scores that we all kind of love, there's also, besides the composer who wrote it, there's a whole other bunch of opinions that go into that piece of music that ends up being the way it is. So film scoring really is a team sport.
Exactly.
That's a great collaboration. To get the notes that makes it better, something that you wouldn't think of. We've probably all gotten some of the other kind of notes. Where it doesn't
I was gonna say, it
sound
happens like 3% of the time.
But no, I feel like I've been so fortunate that I work with people that give me good notes, and it makes it better.
Well, and similarly in the Madison, I've got a question for you about writing to the performance, because the interesting thing about your score is doing a lot of the heavy lifting on that show in terms of kind of conveying the internal state of this character, the Michelle Pfeiffer character who's grieving, and your music is almost like this additional form of expression for her. So, tell me a little bit about that, about finding a musical language for that character and how you were influenced by what she was doing.
She's such an incredible actress that there would be scenes where there's Temp doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and really I didn't need to do much. Like, just something to hold that performance sort of in place, really, and to just sort of have an undercurrent of score underneath it and let her do her thing. Like, the last thing I want to do is be like, everyone listen to the music. This is what we should all be listening to, not her performance, sort of thing. So a lot of her performance was helping me strip back the score. I was playing around with breaking the theme up and just having little fragments. So it's almost like the score is feeling grief as well and coming to terms with what's happening, and kind of in shock as well. And it's only until she starts getting through it all and starts having a better understanding of her loss and her grief, that I can start to bring the score back in and have her tell a bit more of the story, sort of thing.
Yeah, capturing like the internal state of Murderbot, Alexander Skarsgård's character, was really, really important. And so the way I ascribed that feeling was with a Roland Juno 60. It's an analog synth. I wanted to find something, and there's a bunch of analog synths to do this, but something that could just kind of go rogue, and that's the same sort of plot for Murderbot. It's like this robot that's gone rogue. So just having this synth that just kind of has a mind of its own and is creating these sounds, was just complementing Murderbot's internal state. And just, there's that, but he's also like finding his humanity as he becomes more sentient. So blending like synth with organic instruments, but specifically just finding instruments that were just as similar to synths. There's like an instrument that I use that I had in my library, a sangwon. It's like a Korean kind of like reeded instrument, and they can go so high, and it's such a piercing, crazy sound. But then you can like bend the pitch, and then same with like the synth, you can do the same thing. You can go these crazy high frequencies and then bend the pitch, and I would like double them, and it would create the craziest like semi-tonal like dissonances. They were kind of coming apart and coming back together, and like it was crazy. And that anxiety that it induced was like just paralleling his journey of like having to make eye contact with certain crew members and just being more human, and it was just so cool to play around with that.
I love that. And I'm curious for the rest of you, were there any instruments that you were using on these shows that were sort of odd or interesting, or things you were using as musical instruments that are not necessarily conventionally thought of as musical instruments?
Well, we were able to kind of like, since we had this rich noir history, a superhero history, we were kind of able to pick and choose our favorites as fans. So like for me, thinking about Jerry Goldsmith, Chinatown, and the use of low piano and prepared piano, and we were able to incorporate that, even though this is a story set far before when Chinatown was made or set, to be able to take elements like that, or guitars, or weird percussion, or anything like this.
Yeah, and like theremin and synths, and also there's a character who his power is to basically turn into sand, and so actually took some like sound design of like these rocks being like broken up and turned that into a weird instrument and texture for him. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of the penny whistle and like some other sounds for Silvermane.
Yeah, even if you would never recognize it as sand, or recognize the photographer's background percussion as being a lot of camera clicks and sounds like that. Yeah, just being able to do that was such a joy and so fun.
Yeah, Boroughs is interesting. We didn't really use. It was orchestral, but the production process we adopted was unusual for today. We recorded everybody 2D in a room all together like they would have in the 80s. We recorded some stuff to tape, which is interesting to kind of give it a vibe, that sound. And we really tried to go, okay, how were scores produced back then? And it wasn't necessarily about the instruments, but it was more about the production process and the writing, and kind of like and so that kind of became the interesting thing. It's kind of a loose score. Like I listen to it, and parts of it I go like, oh, I want to go in there and edit that, and I want to do all this stuff. But there's a thing to it not being completely perfect on the grid that gives it this kind of organic nature in a way that kind of is, it's nostalgic. For people that are, used to kind of hearing that. I mean, there was a sound to those scores back then. It wasn't just the orchestra. It was also the way it was orchestrated, and the way how many musicians were in the band, and different ways that you kind of mix things, and so that was kind of the thing with the Boroughs that we really were trying to capture, was like, how do we get that sound besides just the notes on the page?
At what point did you guys decide to do tape? Like, is that a later decision, or?
No, it was early. It was early, and it was a lot of it, a lot of the solo stuff. We tried to reprint some of the orchestral stuff back onto tape as well, especially for the main title, because we wanted to kind of have just a sound to it.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because it made me realize how good we've gotten at mimicking it in the digital world. Because I remember when I first got into this business, and they were with Pro Tools and stuff, they were trying to use saturation and stuff to kind of give it that feel, and it was really bad at first. And then it was funny going back into that world and actually printing some stuff onto tape and then listening to it against kind of what the plugins were doing. We've gotten really good at it, but there's still something so special about printing on tape. I mean, just how you can push into it and just it doesn't distort, and you just get all this kind of really great, especially with orchestral music, because there's such a giant dynamic range with it. Yeah.
We did kind of the same thing. Because there's a nostalgia to the feeling of the scores from Alien, and I needed to figure out how to incorporate some of that while continuing to make it sound modern.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of synths and all kinds of esoteric instruments. As I was saying, this thing called the bass desmophone, which is this instrument that was built by a company in Switzerland. It has a very evocative low sound combined with the orchestra, and we went to Abbey Road and recorded Abbey Road to get that sort of big cinematic sound that you also might equate with these movies. That first movie was one of the great horror movies, and the second one is one of the great action movies, and we kind of needed to do both of those things. So there's big percussion and a big orchestral sound. But we went with tape for tape delays, which is what they used in that first movie, and giving a little bit of the tip of the hat to that kind of stuff was really, really important to
Oh, that
to
Goldsmith
evoking.
gold tape delay stuff is really cool.
And I did that. That's how I was able to nod to that score was the tape delay on the horns, which was a lot of fun. A lot of fun to do. Like once we found it, it was like, oh yeah, there it is. That's it. That's the thing. Let's do that.
I'm curious. I remember texting you when I watched it about how much I feel like it really held the sound of the original while at the same time being really modern and like being you. I'm curious how much you spent time like going back to the original and like trying to get it ingrained in you, or how much you feel like you just trusted the process that's already in you and you can just do your own thing.
There's a lot of trust. But I've seen those two movies, the first two movies, which was sort of the template for what we were really going for, just overall. Like if you watch the show too, like that opening scene, you see in that control area where all of a sudden you're like, wait, that looks just like it did in 79. And so there was a lot of that. I had gone back and listened and watched the movies. I never went and listened to the scores on their own, except for the one horn tape delay thing, because I really wanted to get that right. I really wanted to do that thing and have someone go, oh, that's that thing. I really wanted that. But a lot of it is trust. A lot of it is trust in the filmmaker too, because as I'm writing stuff, I'm sort of in this, bubble, and I'm feeding stuff to Noah, and he's listening to it, and if he's thinking it's working, it must be working, right?
That's something that you do really well, Mac, on your show, is that thing of like finding a parallel language for the music for the character.
I didn't do what you mentioned, the stress test of the theme, to see like what was gonna happen. I just was like, okay, I need a creepy theme for Ed and his mother. And I'm hoping it's gonna be able to do some other things. And the creepy part, this is what I started with, that's what I presented to Ryan after 2 days and recorded live. And they were like, okay. And then sure enough, I took it for a funeral scene and I made it sad, and it worked. I'm like, whew, okay. And then it was like dramatic. And then later on, I needed an uplifting version, and I reharmonized it, a few major chords, and boom, it worked. So I kind of lucked out that the theme could do all those things. Because yes, it's a horror show, but Ed is he was a very damaged person. And so Ryan wanted the audience to be able to feel a little bit of something for him, even in spite of all the horrible things that he did. And so I was a little conflicted about that myself, but that was the job, and I think it did what Ryan asked.
How do you see your role in terms of kind of unifying the tones of the show, so that like the score, it all sounds like it's of a piece, but you're also servicing all of these kind of different genres and tones that are being crossed together in this stuff?
When we first came on, because we didn't have time to kind of create this theme suite that helps us prove what the range of the sound is going to be over the course of the whole show, we decided to look at strong thematic moments for a handful of characters across the first couple of episodes.
Once you have the right themes and the right textures, and each character may have their own unique sound palette, suddenly everything kind of just starts to work, and that panic over like, oh my God, we're in episode 1, how are we gonna get to the end? And suddenly you go, I don't know what to do with this scene, but if I take this character's texture and I take this character's melody and I start to superimpose them, if you've done your job right, I find that kind of lets you find that path more quickly. And it's not the kind of thing that you expect an audience member to track over time or to perceive, but it's something that when we do it and the showrunner and the filmmaking team feel our passion for it, I think it just kind of subconsciously makes it all feel that much more like internally logical in a way.
We have so many choices now. Like when you think about the composers that we're talking about, from Herman and Franz and all of the great film composers of the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, like they didn't have near the amount of choices that we have. So we sit in a room and we basically have every sound known to man, right? And we can put any of it in our score. So we have a lot more decisions to make than they did. So they had a lot more confidence because they had only that to work with.
Yeah. I love being able to restrict the choices. In Monster, it was just a handful of instruments. And it just felt, it didn't need something. It was cello, violin, percussion, a lot of like crazy percussion, piano, and a few woodwinds. And then that was it. Like I wasn't dipping into the infinite sound well. And it was just, it's so nice because then it's like, there's the palette. It's very simple. That's all I need to do. I don't have to go. And it, I don't know, it makes it so much easier for me. I don't get to do it a lot because, you know, that infinite sound well is very tempting.
Did you decide on that restriction at the beginning, or did it kind of evolve into that feels set, now I'm not gonna touch it anymore?
No, it evolved. You know, it took like the first episode, and we had it, and it was like, this is pretty much. We hadn't added the woodwinds yet. That came in like episode 2 or 3, and then it was like, that's it. It doesn't need anything else. I think I had like 1 synth pad and 2 cues, and that was it. Everything else was organic, and it was working.
Right. Once you find it, you can sort of relax. It's that moment where all the lights are out and you're feeling around and you're like, oh, okay, I could use that, I could use that, I could use this, I could use that, I could use this. Okay, now I really need to narrow it down. That's the frightening part. And then you get it after that first episode or whatever. And so much of what we do is feeling around a studio in the dark. You know, we're all just trying to figure it out as we go. There isn't one sit down and like, I know exactly what I'm going to do here. That almost never happens, right? We spend so much of the time building a score, never knowing what the end or where the end is going to be until the end is then in front of you and you're like, oh my God, I'm done.
Yeah, or they say good projects are never finished, they're abandoned. Right. You know, like, and that for me too. That's always the hardest. Like to have the confidence to be able to put down just some basses and a piano in a scene and go, that's it. That's perfect.
Right.
That's what I need to do. That's brutal to get through as a composer when you have all this education, this information, and you know you're thinking of all the great scores you grew up with, and you have to kind of like put these. It's just a really difficult thing to have the confidence to just do what the scene needs and not overdo it, because I've overdone it before too, and that's always a bad feeling too. I remember I wrote a score that I thought was incredible, and I remember I went to the premiere of it, and I'm in the audience going, oh my God, there's that damn theme again, you know, just huge, you know, and I'm just like, oh my God, who let this go in, you know? And so you rely on your filmmakers as well to be that kind of stopgap as well, and you hope you get enough people behind it, but it's tricky. It's hard to have that confidence when you're in a bubble like that and you're just kind of working, and because it is a very kind of solitary job. I mean, you're kind of on your own for a lot of it, and I've kind of surrounded myself in my process with people that I try to encourage to tell me if something is bad, but it's tricky. Yeah, it's tricky business.
Well, just as all scores are eventually abandoned, it's time to abandon this roundtable. But this has been great. Thank you all for doing this. Your work on these shows is really incredible. So I appreciate you taking the time to do it.